Thank you so much, Andy. This is going to be so much fun. Who's excited to learn a little bit about machine learning today? Woo! All right, this will be good. So I talk a lot about machine learning. I'm a bit obsessed. And I often get met with this question about, what does this matter to me, right? I'm not a technical programmer. I'm not going to become a data scientist. Why does this matter to us? And my challenge to all of you is that you don't have to be a data scientist to think of the next brilliant machine learning solution. You really don't. So in the world of machine learning, it's really comprised of three things. There's hardware, which continues to be more and more affordable and more fast and computationally savvy. There's data, which we're getting more and more of. It's getting easier to access. And then the third thing is people. And currently, the bottleneck in this industry comes from one of those things. Does anyone want to take a guess? People, exactly, people. So we need people like you to think about ways that you could apply machine learning to your everyday life. And quite frankly, every single person in this room has domain expertise. You have domain expertise in your day-to-day life, in your experiences, in your current role, you name it. There are absolutely things that you could apply this to and start thinking about. So, really excited. And people are already applying this stuff, non-technical folk. So someone was inspired and created this visualization of people also ask questions, which is pretty cool. So this will be good. So I want you all to consider, what does your current path from data to implementation look like today? Right? What does that process look like? All the way from maybe you're auditing a website, whatever that might be, consider that path. And consider how it can be more efficient, right? We all have kind of those wishes with our roles, especially in SEO, about how we can make this stuff easier. How can we make this faster and more efficient? And so in order to do better, we have to think differently. We have to evolve as SEOs. We've been doing a lot of the same things year over year, and it's about time for a change. My favorite story about thinking differently is in relation to this sweet baby angel right here, Bill Gates. Oh, I love that picture so much. There's another one where he's like this. So good. Bill has made incredible efforts to eradicate malaria. And he started to grow quite frustrated when some of the efforts weren't really gaining traction. And he thought, okay, we have to think differently. I'm going to hire a bunch of hackers to look at this problem differently. Because that's exactly what hackers do. They attack it from all different perspectives. And so what they did is they started considering, okay, malaria. What if we set up high-definition camera fences around communities? And these high-definition camera fences will detect when a mosquito passes through the barrier. Not only that, but it will detect if it's a male or a female mosquito, depending on the wing speed. Crazy. And then once they detect that it's a female who carries malaria, they shoot it down with a laser beam. Like, this, how crazy. Like, this is the kind of innovative, hacky solution that levels up, that evolves different spaces of research, and you name it. And so my theory is, machine learning can be your laser beam. It really can. It can attack problems you've never otherwise considered attacking with this type of solution. And more importantly, this is going to free us up to do more strategic work, more high-level thinking. And this technology is becoming more and more accessible every single day. It's getting easier to use. It's getting easier to implement. It's super exciting. So it's important that we know just the foundations of how it works so you can start thinking today how you could apply this to your life. So this is what my framework for today kind of looks like. It's kind of a choose your own adventure though, because I wanted to gauge how many people were even interested in hearing a little bit about BERT. How many people have heard about the whole BERT thing? Okay, so there's a decent amount of you. Are you interested in going into it a little bit? Okay, great. So we'll do that super briefly. I think it's important just to have an awareness. We don't need to get into the weeds, but high level. All right. So how does this stuff work? So at a really foundational level, if machine learning was a car, data would be the fuel. Data fuels all machine learning. And for the record, anytime you hear the word AI, 99.999% of the time, it's machine learning. There's so many extremely well-respected scientists that would argue we haven't reached AI yet. But this machine learning is a field of AI that's very exciting, built on data. And I have some examples of things that I have built, but I want to clarify something first. I am not a trained data scientist. I am not by any means, trained programmer. I basically find these models and I break them. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm sort of a Frankenstein developer of sorts. But if I can do it, any person in this room is fully capable. So just to give you one example here, this was a model that I found called TensorFlow for Poets. Any of you can find this. And what I discovered when I was playing around with this model was that all of the images just lived in these folders. And again, this is all built off data. So I thought, well, what if I take pictures of my beautiful little pet snake pumpkin and I put it into a folder called pumpkin? Could I also create a model to recognize whether or not it was a picture of my pet snake? And with just, I think I put in maybe 25 photos. With 25 photos, it's 99% confident that that's pumpkin. And that's a pretty, difficult photo for a computer to recognize a snake. She's got a hat on. There's a lot going on there. But it's amazing. Very little data did this. So it's exciting to start thinking about the applications in tech, in marketing, and SEO, what you can do with images in this space. And images from this project are pulled from ImageNet. This is the largest online resource for labeled training images. It's really powerful. And this is what data fueled another model I made to use my computer camera to predict what was in front of it. It wasn't always accurate, but it was a lot of fun. Sometimes insulting, but it was fun to play around with. And so that's my friend Shatish, and thinks he's a sleeping bag. Another thing that I was able to create was, I came across this machine learning model called Shakespeare. And what it does is it actually takes Shakespeare text and it reads all of it. It trains on that text, and it creates entirely new dramas. New characters, new storylines, and it does this extremely well. And so I was playing around with this, and I thought, what if I took Rand Fishkin's writing and Beyonce lyrics? What would happen? And this is sort of my Rand Beyonce rap generator. It rhymes. They have a full album at that bit.ly link. It's somewhat inappropriate, but so amazing. Really, really fun stuff. So I suggest you go and explore these things and break them, right? Apply them to different types of things. Consider the ways in which you can shift it. So what is this in a nutshell? So machine learning is a subset of AI that combines statistics and programming to give computers the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. It's amazing. Really exciting stuff. So in a real kind of cartoon nutshell, this is kind of what it looks like. So you have a ton of training data. You save a chunk of that. It's very important. You don't train on all of it. You save a chunk of it for later. And then the model trains on that data over and over and over. And what is actually happening inside is the first time it trains through, it's not going to do good. It's assigning random weights and measurements to everything you put in there, and it's just not going to do good. But it measures how well it does, and it gets better and better to the accuracy that you're looking for. So, and this is why the training data is so important, right? It has to be training on really clean, accurate data. And then after you've trained it well enough, you test that chunk that you saved to see how well it's performing. And this is why the data is so important. This is why we are labeling data for Google all the time, right? We're giving our data away all the time, and researchers and data scientists use this regularly. So it's also important to consider what sort of data we're handing over to these machines. It's crazy. Something machine learning doesn't solve for is people skills. So it hasn't yet it hasn't even come close to things like teachers, nurses, childcare. These are fields that are fully protected in our lifetime from any sort of machine learning. They might, have assistance with machine learning and be able to level up in different ways, but those jobs, those positions, this does not solve well for, right? And a brief soapbox moment that I think requires a whole talk in and of itself is the fact that safe and effective machine learning, it requires diversity. It absolutely requires it in data and in the technicians implementing these systems. And our future really depends on it. And so we see these models being built on slanted data, on biased data, on racist data. They don't have enough data put into the model to have a really, a quality view of the outcome. This is why when Google released their Smart Compose feature, and if you were typing an email about a programmer you just interviewed, it would suggest he instead of, she, or just not using a pronoun, right? This stuff is happening all the time. We see this over and over again. And I think we're going to see more of it, which is terrifying. But it's so important for people to have this general understanding of, question the models that you're seeing, question the type of data that goes into it, and we need to make sure that we do a better job. So, hope that gets better. And again, this stuff is just going to free us up to work on more strategic tasks. It really is. It's so exciting. And this is my quick BERT 101. So, for those of you that might not have heard, last Friday, there was this huge announcement by Google. And they basically said, hey, this is the biggest algorithm update we've made in years. This is monumental for Google searches. We have implemented an algorithm called BERT to better understand queries and better provide answers to users. BERT stands for, I hope that I get this right, so it's bidirectional encoding responders from transformers. It really should be BERT, but that probably didn't sound so good, so they're like, we'll just name it BERT. And what it does is pretty incredible. So we sort of hear about these things, and we get a snapshot of, okay, this BERT thing, it's now used by Google. We need to know a little bit about it. We get a snapshot of what this thing is instead of seeing the whole movie. So I want to give you a little bit of perspective as to where the heck this came from, right? So traditionally, computers have been terrible at understanding text. They can store text, they can print text, but the understanding lacks, right? They have a really difficult time understanding concepts or sentiment, you name it, which is why the field of natural language processing came along, and data scientists created one-off algorithms to solve for these things, to solve for understanding. So there's named entity recognition, classification, translation, question answering, all these things. And the individual models that were created were really, really good at that one task, right? It's just like utensils in your kitchen. All of these things do one unique thing. Then BERT comes along. BERT is like the multi-kitchen utensil. it does a bunch of those in and of itself, and it does it better than some of those best programs. So this came along, and Google basically, started thinking, well, we must apply this to search to provide a better product, and it outperforms the 10 plus common tools. Crazy. Pre-trained BERT model can fine-tune with just one additional output layer to create a state-of-the-art model with wide-range tasks such as question and answering. Does this sound familiar for you SEOs? Does this sound a little bit like featured snippets, right? My theory is that we are going to start to see way more featured snippets. We are going to probably see way better voice answers, because now we have this more contextual component in search that understands content and understands relationship of entities. It's bidirectional. This means it looks both ways at your text that you're entering to better associate things together. It's really, really powerful and quite exciting. This was a slide that Jeff Dean at Google had given at this engineering conference in May, I believe. But this is a great example where they talk about it applying to natural question solutions, where that red box is the content that Google is trying to source an answer from. It's kind of a lot, right? It's kind of all over the place. It's text heavy. But with BERT, they're able to just associate you can't make and receive calls in airplane mode. It's amazing. So super exciting. And how this got put together, this was trained on Google Books and Wikipedia, and then a Scrooge McDuck money, and very smart people. It's true. To make this thing, it requires so much money. It's insane to think about. And then it also requires computational power. So Google created their own computer chips for machine learning called TPUs. And what you see here is a V3 pod built with hundreds, thousands of TPUs. And on one of these pods, it takes 76 minutes to train a BERT language representation model. This is unheard of. And it's wild to see how quickly they're able to accelerate this space. So it'll be exciting to see where this goes in the future. This is the source of BERT outperforming these other really high-performing machine learning models. It's just crushing them. There's a lot of things BERT can't do. It's not good at negation. So you see this example of a robin is a bird. It also predicted a robin is a bird, and it mismatched tree. So it's not perfect, but we're getting most of the way there. And what does that mean for SEO, right? What does this mean for you? For one, this is open sourced. You can actually play around with this right now on your computer. If you open Terminal and you put in pip install PyTorch pre-trained BERT, you can download the open source model of BERT. It's awesome. This stuff is so exciting. And you don't really need to do anything to prepare for this other than be aware that it's happening. Start to consider on-page context. And this is a great article by Brigsby that talks about how you can write better just for people, right? That's really all it is. It's an introduction to natural language processing. It's an introduction to entities, to having really concise, scannable material. And I think it would help all of us, be able to offer better content to search. And so back to the SEO and the machine learning applications, how does this apply, right? And this has traditionally been kind of hard to explain in just the different machine learning models. And so I thought, what if I was able to apply sort of a machine learning layer over the things you currently do? What would that look like? How could we start to envision what this would look like? So let's start with analytics. That should be fueling your strategy, right? So we start here. Imagine being able to uncover the one keyword or topic with the highest ROI potential at any given time. So this could be a rolling metric week over week, and you could know, okay, for this week, this is the highest potential keyword for our client. This is monumental stuff, and it can absolutely be done. I know Will Reynolds is coming to speak to you all later, and he will be speaking about Power BI, probably, right? Is that? Oh, we don't know. It'll be a surprise. I'm guessing he's going to do an amazing talk about Power BI, get super fired up, and tell you all about how Power BI can look at this stuff and tease out information in a really beautiful way. Kind of doing what I alluded to as far as finding the one key opportunity. I say, hopefully the days of hundreds of pages of site audits are over. We need focused content, focused efforts for search. And there are so many beautiful ways to do this, but it can also be automated. And with automation comes this beautiful layer of, it's more accurate if you are able to set it up correctly. And so Will talks about Power BI looking at the relationship between your paid traffic, so what keywords provide the most value for your site, and where can you improve in those areas in search. Really, really powerful. You can also take a look at things like that with data science tools. So there's an open source tool called Facets by Google, and you can upload Google Search Console data. So here I'm uploading keywords that Moz.com ranks for, and I am looking at the click-through rate. The click-through rate is going up as it goes to the right, and the position that the keyword ranks for is going up as you go to the top. And so you get to see this floating dot kind of in the top right there. That's the word link building. So we see a 3% click-through rate, which is pretty good, but it's position 15. It's not even on page 1. It's wild, right? Moz should be focusing on this keyword. You add multi-dimensions to this data, and it takes you to a whole nother level. And so with this color by feature, you're able to add a dimension for impressions. And all of a sudden, you start to see these unique things pop out that you would have otherwise missed. And so this example is the query Google My Business. It's position 9, so the very end of page 1. And look at those impressions. It's through the roof, right? It might serve us well to provide better information about Google My Business. It's kind of fun, interesting ways to look at your data. A lot of you do strategy. Imagine being able to navigate your marketing strategy by rolling business and marketing data. This is nothing new, right? We have been predicting sales for years and years and years. But something that the financial industry that has gotten so good at hasn't been applied anywhere else, right? JP Morgan has machines doing all of their trading short and medium term. And they've had this for years. And it's more accurate and more successful than human traders. Why in the world haven't we started applying this logic and this thinking to other industries? Is there a holiday or a trend coming up? Do we see demand shifting in the space? How can we pivot based on current metrics? And someone that's doing this extraordinarily well right now is Rand Fishkin with SparkToro. He's creating this tool that basically pulls real-time data. You can put in all sorts of things. So my example here is my audience frequently talks about CRO, conversion rate optimization. It shows me YouTube channels they follow and are subscribed to. It shows me podcasts they listen to, audience insights that I would have otherwise, had no idea. Really, really cool stuff. What does your process look like? Imagine adding insights to your current process, deep insights, and automating some of them. There's a tool called Phrase, and this basically leverages machine learning for content research. So it provides article summarization, it does question answering, it starts to do that research for you. It's incredibly powerful. And again, this stuff is becoming more and more accessible. It's just helping all of us level up and working on higher level thinking. Another part of the process is reporting, right? We all love those. Automated Insights has a plugin with Tableau that is mind-blowing. So this thing is called Wordsmith. You plug it into Tableau, and what it basically does is, depending on where you click on a graph or an informational view in Tableau, it provides insights in text form to the side of the material. Imagine sitting down with a client, not knowing where the conversation is going. They ask about an area you might not have been prepared to talk about or to provide, advice on. All of a sudden, this tool is able to provide insights you would have otherwise missed. It's really, really cool, really powerful stuff. How many of you are doing 301 redirects right now or know about? Okay, great. Imagine automating some of that. So this is next level. Paul Shapiro, I keep saying this. We're all in 2019. Paul Shapiro is living in 2040. This guy is he's in the future, you guys. It's crazy. Watch what he does. He thought of this nuts idea to basically crawl your website, use archive.org, which is a great website to look at historical pages in time. And he crawls archive.org for a specific website, sees any old pages of yours that were indexed, sees if they're currently showing up in the browser. If they're showing a 404, he uses semantic similarity and automates a 301 redirect. So he's basically finding these broken pages on your website, automating the process of finding where it could be redirected to. And this is not only good for users, it's good for search engines, it's good for people that previously linked to material of yours that you deleted. This stuff is crazy, and it can be automated, and automated quite well. So much fun. Emotion. Imagine, this gets really creepy, I have to be honest. Imagine having really rich customer understanding. So I've always thought this is a really interesting part of marketing. We just heard the people side of things. It's incredibly powerful. And how can you start to understand this at a wider scale? What does that look like? And I've recently been playing around a lot with Google's Vision API. It's interesting. So I put in a photo of a recent SEO beers meetup, and it detects joy. But not only that, when you look at the actual source code, Google is looking at the corners of our eyes. They're looking at our pupils. They are taking small micro measurements to detect joy, to detect fear, all of these things. It's wild. And just imagine what sort of things you could do with this from a marketing perspective. Right? Let's say you have a client with a business location and the photos are uploaded tagged with that location. You can see, what kind of emotions are coming from these people. I hope you would be able to kind of see that. But if it's at like a large scale, you can do this stuff at scale and start to get actual measurements from it, which is wild. Stuff is crazy. What a time to be alive. It's nuts. It's nuts. If you want to look really smart in meetings, I suggest you download Monkey Learn plugin for your Google Sheets. This is always really fun. I was in a meeting recently at Miles where we were talking about competitors and what's going on with them in the space. And I thought, well, what if we pulled in the Twitter API and looked at any mentions with our competitors and then used sentiment analysis to categorize, okay, what are people speaking negatively about competitor A, and what are they speaking positively about competitor A within the last couple weeks? What's going on, right? You can quickly get a pulse on this information in really cool ways. Again, this stuff is just becoming more and more accessible. So it is of your value to start playing around a little bit in this space and applying it to some of the things that you do. It's really, really fun. Another cool example is Amazon has a really great review API. So a friend of mine was designing a waterproof backpack, and I thought, well, why don't we pull in all of the Amazon reviews for recent waterproof backpacks, and I can divide it into positive and negative sentiment. And then I can come up with a list of features people really, really liked and things that people really, really disliked. And you can design your backpack around that, and it proved to do very well. So fun stuff like that, right? You can use this for all sorts of things. It's just about considering the things you're trying to do and what sort of data you can get to power your efforts to make it better or easier or faster. Content, right? Imagine automating meaningful content. This is crazy. OpenAI, so Elon Musk started this company to, their whole mission was we're going to create open AI for all and help further the space so that it's not, housed by these giants. And then they come to announce that they built a text generator so good that they considered it way too dangerous to release. Wild. They ended up releasing a rolled back version called GTP2, and a bunch of people have incorporated this into tools. So you can go to Talk to Transformer, and you can enter in some text. So here I enter in the text from this website for the conference, and I put in, every year 400 plus marketers and top-rated speakers spend 2 days sharing insights into content strategy, promotion, conversion, and analytics. And what it completed this with is this. And every year this panel and other key events are sold out, which is true, right? And the next conference is on July 31st. Andy, is that right? That's not right, is it? Well, we don't know. This is news to all of us. July 31st is the latest info. I love how it says about registration and venue here in all caps. You can find the speakers, trainers, and other resources they will be using on this blog. A few key things I'm going to cover in this post. What is good content strategy? What are our goals for content? What are the tools we need to start? Amazing, right? This is amazing. This is machine learning generated. Another tool to play around with this is Write for Transformer. And a quick note, Transformer is the T in BERT, right? So all of these things, are connected in one way or another. Something really cool you can do with automated systems and with these programs that can basically understand text is you can automate meta descriptions. Now, for those of you working at websites that scale, right, that have hundreds of thousands of pages, you want to implement something like this to get you part the way there. This isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be way better than just not having a meta description or not having, you can do this for titles, not having a title. Really, really cool, exciting stuff. Recently, Hamlet Batista did an incredible webinar on Traffic Think Tank about finding keywords for a website that aren't doing so well. And finding those keywords in those pages that aren't doing so well and considering, well, what's the top keyword for those particular pages on your site? Are those keywords in your title tag? And if they're not, this system automatically implements them in a coherent way. Really, really powerful stuff. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's so exciting. Imagine automating visual content and image understanding. So this is a really cool example of a tool called Lumen 5. You basically put in a bunch of text, and you can see it's picking a media image to the right there. It chooses media to fit your text. It automates creation of videos. Again, this stuff isn't perfect, but if you're trying to get something to scale, or if you want some of the legwork to be done and then to come and clean it up, how great is this, right? This can start to get you part of the way there, and they're actually really good. I've been very impressed with Lumen 5. Back to this, automate image understanding, that vision API. So this is where I'm creepy. My boss, Rob Bucci, has the cutest little kitten, and I secretly take photos of him and his cat during our one-on-ones because he lives in Vancouver. And so I secretly took this photo, and then I was like, well, I wonder what Google would recognize this photo as. And of course, it's like muscle, forehead, facial hair. It doesn't really pick up the cat, but what was funny to me was when I went to Safe Search, this was extremely racy. It's like, That's weird. And again, this stuff isn't perfect, right? This is all a work in progress, but it's exciting to see where it's headed. This was another creepy thing with this Vision API. It detected that that was Rand Fishkin. It detected that we were in Seattle. And it's doing that by looking at pages that match that image. So it found our Twitter profile pages when we shared it. It found a website that had shared it. Crazy stuff, right? This is becoming more and more accessible and will free you up to work on higher level thinking. You don't have to be super technical. Google has a natural language API demo in the browser where you can just Google for Google's natural language API, scroll down, paste in the copy of something you're trying to get to rank, and look at the categories. Conversely, do that with the competitor that might be ranking above you, and you can oftentimes see that the top ranking content has really concise, boiled down categories. Whereas some things that might not be doing so well might be spread out over 3+ categories. Really interesting stuff. You can automate audio transcriptions, which is really cool. So for any of you doing podcast or video work, you can use Amazon Transcribe. You basically upload an MP3, and within minutes, it can take an hour's worth of MP3 content, and it transcribes it. And not only does it transcribe it, but it delineates person 1 from person 2 all the way to 10 people. It's really, really powerful. And I recently saw this Twitter user prototyped an incredible tool for podcasters where you can edit it within the text form, so you don't have to listen to your podcast and edit it accordingly. You can read what you said and edit it, and it changes your MP3 file to cut down the material. Revolutionary, right? These are such little tweaks that make huge changes in our space, huge changes in the way that we work in our current workflows. It's so exciting. So I hope you enjoyed this fun layer of SEO machine learning stuff. I want to make sure that you all have the resources and tools necessary to start to play around in this space and have fun with it and consider the ways in which it could be of value to you. So again, we've only scratched the surface. You can do all sorts of really cool tasks. You can automate speed tests with Lighthouse. I mean, you name it. This stuff is just the surface. And I believe many of you sitting in this audience can think of the next really cool things that we can do in this space. There's so much yet to be explored. So here's a very, very simple machine learning framework. So first, just consider what you want to solve for. Right? Do you have data to train a model on that? Right? Do you want to categorize something? Do you want to predict something? Think about the things in which you want to do, and then consider what sort of data you might have to make that stuff happen. If you don't have data that can assist, could you start to collect it? Right? Consider the ways in which you might start to be able to collect data to get the things done that you want to do. And then, so the full framework, this is 10 steps. I made this super easy. It's a bit.ly link. It'll automatically copy this from my Google Doc, and it's brilliant. It's a little bit intensive to go through the all 10 and the different examples. It's so important because it'll allow you to come at these very efficiently and be able to approach a data scientist or someone that can also potentially help you with some of these efforts, right? Really, really cool stuff. Algorithmia, if you want to just see what's currently available, they have these beautiful pre-packaged machine learning models that you can plug and play and do things with. Really cool. Kaggle is the largest data science competition website. It's just really fun to keep an eye on this stuff. Like, what are people doing? TSA is putting up $1.5 million to get a model to help screen for people. Do you think that maybe that data is a bit slanted? Like, it's important to start thinking about this stuff and how it might be used in the future. Here are some of my favorite getting started materials. And we'll make sure you guys get all these slides. I've got the top machine learning books. I also realized that these are usually pretty expensive, And I found this awesome resource that has all free machine learning books. You just need a free Data Science Central account, but that's a really great resource. Myself and a bunch of others in this industry have created a GitHub repository with we call it the Machine Learning Toolkit for SEO. So if you have questions about data or anything, check that out, and feel free to ping any of us and let us know if we can help. This is a great Python cheat sheet, advanced resources. I know it's a lot. I just want to make sure you have everything. These are some incredible people to follow on Twitter. They are not only in the space of data science and using Python and machine learning, but they know the search industry so well. And they have all inspired me so much to do some of this stuff. So highly recommend you follow their work. And I know we covered a lot. I know it was a little bit all over the place, but what did we learn today, right? We know that machine learning can shorten that path of ours from data to insights and make it more effective. A machine learning model is only as good as the training data. To consider the type of data we currently have access to, right? And I really hope all of you feel that you could create a model today, absolutely. And one of the easiest ways to start that was on the Getting Started resource is Google Code Labs. They walk you through a step-by-step process. That's how I got started. And it's so easy. Anyone can create a machine learning model in 20 minutes today if you want to at Code Labs. Super excited. Diversity is paramount, right? And this stuff is just going to help us level up, and it's becoming way more accessible. One quick note, couldn't be prouder of our data science team at Moz. We are innovating in this space to provide you with features and tool sets that will revolutionize the way that you currently do search. We are currently working on an intent model to predict customer and searcher intent for keywords. If any of you are interested in the beta, feel free to come find me or send me a message later today. And lastly, I just encourage you all to think differently, right? There are so many cool things that we can apply this stuff to in everyday life, to your work, and you can absolutely be those hackers that think of the laser beams with these mosquitoes, right? What will all of you solve for? I cannot wait to find out. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun. That was my prediction. Thank you.